Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I have another post that I am doing for My Favorite Things as a guest designer for them today. And I'm using the new Stars Above stamp set and coordinating dies. And I've done a separate quick tip video on this, as well as shown it on many videos. With my MFT Die-namics, I rarely cut them apart. It's just a convenience thing. So I line them up inside my MISTI. This time I'm using the mini MISTI with the dies face down, and then I line up all the stamps, and then I pick up the stamps with the lid of the MISTI, and then I can stamp them all at once. And I decided to stamp them onto some smooth white cardstock from MFT that I treated with my anti-static powder tool first. And I'm inking up the stamps with Versamark ink, stamping them onto the cardstock, and then I'm going to coat all of this with some Ranger Princess Gold embossing powder. So I'm going to pour that over these stamps, and then once I've got them coated with the embossing powder, I'm going to get my heat tool going and melt all of this. So I've got these gold metallic stars. I love this set. I love the detail of these. They're just, the geometric look to them is fabulous. So, and as always, I couldn't decide which ones to use. That's why I stamped all of them. So once I had them all embossed, I wanted to add some definition, but I thought I would still keep things pretty simple. So all I did was grab my little Prima metallic watercolor set, and I'm just using my favorite one, which is this gold one in the set, and picking up some of that with a paintbrush and just painting some of the areas. I'm not painting all of it, just a bit here and there. My camera, I sped this up extra because my camera, when I'm working with anything really metallic, my camera has a heck of a time focusing. I think it's just the reflection, or I don't know. But of course I didn't notice until after I'm done everything and editing. But yeah, I just painted the metallic watercolor onto this. I didn't worry that this is not watercolor paper, this is just regular cardstock, because the metallic watercolor, it's thicker. I'm not adding a ton of water, so I don't need to worry about warping. I'm not doing any blending, anything like that. So I don't have to worry about like warping or pilling or anything. So I'm just going to paint on the metallic watercolor, let it dry, which does not take very long at all. It dries quite quickly. And then once it's dry, I can run this through my Big Shot with that coordinating die set and die cut all the stars at once. And then while I had the Big Shot out, I also used the Star Grid cover-up Die-namics and with a piece of heavyweight white cardstock. And I ran this through, and I didn't use a shim or anything, so it cut almost all the way through, but not quite, which I was glad because I didn't want to pop out all of the individual pieces. I just kind of liked the texture it created. So I kept it as is, and then I used my splatter cubby, and I mixed up some more of that same gold watercolor, and this time I pulled out one of my acrylic blocks, and I just pick up the watercolor and kind of scrape it onto the acrylic block until I'm happy with how much I've got and how thick of a consistency, because with metallic watercolors, you do need to kind of work with it a bit to mix up and bring up the color, if that makes sense. So got a good amount on my block, and then I just flick the paintbrush against the edges of the block to create a splatter on this background. So I've got this fabulous gold splatter. So did that, and then I die cut some black cardstock with the new stitched sentiment strips Die-namics, and I checked before I even die cut that the sentiment would fit, and literally just barely fit. So I checked first, then I die cut, did the same thing. I treated it with my anti-static powder tool. Then I stamped the sentiment. It's from the same Stars Above stamp set with some Versamark ink. And then just coated it with that same embossing powder. And I'm going to heat that with my heat tool until it is completely melted. And then once it's melted and, I give it a couple seconds to cool off, I rub off the excess anti-static powder just with my fingers, because especially on darker cardstocks, that anti-static powder really shows up. So wipe that off, and then my card base is some heavyweight white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 11. So I'm going to score it at 5 1/2. So this will be a top folding A2 sized card. And then the cover up piece that I had cut and splattered, I coated the entire back of it with foam tape. That way it adheres. If any of the little pieces did decide to come off, they're all adhered, so it's all good. So I adhered that to my card, and then I figured out how I wanted to lay out these stars. I also die cut a couple stars with the same Die-namics, just from some gold glitter paper. So figured out how I wanted everything to be laid out, and then I pulled out the foam tape again and adhered the sentiment with foam tape and a few of the stars with foam tape, and then the remaining stars I just adhered flat to the background just to give everything a little bit more definition. So using just the little strips of leftover foam tape from pieces I cut, and then popping those onto the background, and I just used my little Xyron tape runner to apply some adhesive to the backs of the ones that I wanted to adhere just flat to this card. So once I'm happy with everything, getting everything lined up, I decided to grab another sentiment from this set, and I'm going to stamp that on the inside of the card. So I pulled out my My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink to ink up the stamp after I'd got the stamp lined up on my acrylic block. So I always like to lay them out flat on my craft sheet first, and then I try to use the grid lines on the block to get the stamp aligned straight. And I'm going to ink it up with the Black Licorice Hybrid ink, stamp it on the inside of the card, and then I'm going to adhere the 3 remaining embossed and painted stars that I had, because of course you can't let them go to waste. So they're perfect for the inside of the card. So just apply more adhesive to adhere these onto the inside. And I could have stopped here, but I wanted to add a few more embellishments. So once I finished the inside of the card, I pulled out some sequins from my stash. I had these Pretty Pink Posh metallic stars. I have a mix of like just some gold and silver stars. So I picked out a couple of gold stars, as well as the Pretty Pink Posh gold metallic 4mm sequins. And I'm just adding little dabs of my Ranger Multimedia Matte Adhesive to where I want to adhere everything. And then picking up the stars and the sequins with my little crystal katana tool. A lot of people have been asking me about this since I showed it in a haul video. Because it is kind of technically ridiculously expensive. I know. I've been getting a lot of grief about that. But honestly, totally worth it. You guys have been seeing me use it in videos. I reach for it all the time. I wish I'd gotten it a long time ago. So got everything adhered, and that finished off my card. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post, links to all the supplies used, link to the MFT blog post where I'll have written instructions for this card. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, and thumbs upping my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.